Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. This is CBC Windsor News. Thanks for watching. Tonight, a Supreme Court ruling means a local man convicted of manslaughter is out. Plus, today marks Red Dress Day to honor missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, with calls to action voiced here in Windsor. COVID-19, a global emergency no more. That's according to the World Health Organization, though it does not mean the pandemic is over just yet. And on the eve of the coronation of King Charles, just how relevant is the monarchy in this city full of royal connections? A Windsor man who was convicted of manslaughter back in 2020 is now free. The Supreme Court of Canada says that Dia Hanan's charter rights were violated because it took too long for his case to go to trial. The court has overturned the conviction. Here now is Dale Molnar to walk us through it.
Dia Hanan shot two men on December 23, 2015 at his home on Oak Street in Windsor. One died. He was charged with murder on the next day. He was eventually sentenced to 15 years in prison for manslaughter and weapons offenses. Last month, the Supreme Court overturned the conviction.
We were delighted by that. We thought, that's what our client deserved, and he deserved it a long time ago.
When Hanan was charged, a framework called Morin existed, which laid out how long the court could take for a case to get to trial. The Charter of Rights states that a person has a right to trial within a reasonable time frame. But on July 8, 2016, the Supreme Court adopted a framework called Jordan, which tightened up the time frame and put a 30-month ceiling on it. Some delays were allowed, but eventually on February 16, 2018, the two parties agreed that the trial had to go ahead by February of 2019 in order to meet the Jordan criteria. The original trial was set for November of 2018, but circumstances came up which threatened to delay the trial. Hanan requested he be tried by judge alone. The Crown refused. That led to the trial not going ahead until October of 2019. In this case, the Supreme Court ruled the judge applied the previous Morin framework to the case when he shouldn't have, and the Crown should have allowed Hanan to be tried by judge alone. The justices wrote, were it not for the Crown's decision, the trial would have occurred within the ceiling. The justices reasoned that the Jordan framework applied in this case because the parties did not rely on the Morin framework because they consciously scheduled the original trial within the 30-month ceiling required under Jordan, and they had ample time to adapt to the Jordan framework.
Mr. Hanan's case, only about 6 months of the case pre-existed Jordan. And after that, up until his trial, the parties had 2.5 years to adapt to what the Supreme Court said in Jordan.
Hanan's lawyer says the lower court should also have granted Hanan's request for stay of proceedings. The judge denied the request. The Supreme Court also ordered a stay of proceedings, meaning Hanan won't be tried for this again. Hanan's lawyer believes the Supreme Court ruling could help clarify things for other court cases.
I think it allows participants in the justice system, Crowns, defense counsel, and judges to have a clear view of what Jordan meant when it comes to things like defense delay.
Hanan is now living in Windsor. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
Today is the National Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. Many communities across the country also mark it as Red Dress Day. One of those events took place in front of the Parliament buildings. Hanging red dresses has become a symbol for those who went missing or were killed. Advocates hope to raise awareness and help end violence against Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. The Parliament unanimously passed a resolution this week declaring it a national emergency. There are also calls for a specific alert system when an Indigenous woman is reported missing. Red Dress Day was also marked here in Windsor at the Can-Am Indian Friendship Center.
Today is a day for us to center our loved ones and relatives who are still missing or who have been murdered, and also center their families and come together as a community to care for one another, and then also at times, be a part of trying to bring about awareness about this day and missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. Today, we're really thankful that we were able to have a sacred fire or a fire here at the Friendship Center for the staff and Indigenous community members to just be with each other and support each other and take the time to honor this day, whatever that looks like for each individual. We decided to reach out and put some flyers out to ask for redress donations because sometimes when it comes to awareness days, there's a lot of purchasing of clothing items. So we wanted to ask for donations to kind of reduce the impact we're having on the environment and also care for the land.
I'm joined today with women and Two-Spirit people from across the country, calling on Canada to immediately recognize what is happening as a Canada-wide emergency.
That's a really big step towards the right direction because, yeah, it's not, it can be very scary sometimes, you know, just being an Indigenous woman in Canada or even America, knowing that if I were to go missing or any of my sisters or cousins or aunties that, you know, it seems like it can get swept under the rug a lot. So knowing, you know, having this day right now to bring awareness is really good, and especially for her, it's, you know, want to make sure it's safe for our younger generation and for just every Indigenous woman in Canada and America, everywhere.
We are impacted by this every day. There's people who are looking for their relatives who are tied up in colonial systems, and so you know, that, you know, it'd be great if the public would engage in these issues on a more, you know, regular basis and try to get involved prior to the days.
The provincial government says it's helping organizations tackle hate, announcing $25 million over 2 years to help religious and minority groups beef up their security. Lorenda Redekop has the details.
Here, someone is caught on security camera spray painting hateful graffiti on a Hindu temple in Windsor. Hateful messages painted on this mosque were quickly covered up. Places of worship are among the most targeted with acts of hate.
We're going to stand up to hate and to stand up to intolerance.
Groups can apply for a grant of up to $10,000 aimed at protecting their facilities from hate-motivated crimes.
Examples could be enhancing locks, installing security cameras, building upgrades, training staff, and hiring of security.
The government says there were more than 1,500 police-reported hate crimes in Ontario in 2021, with Muslim and Jewish communities among the most targeted, as well as Indigenous, Black, and LGBTQ communities. Last month, a man drove directly at someone outside a mosque in Markham, then entered the building yelling Islamophobic slurs and threats. The National Council of Canadian Muslims pushed for this funding.
Especially during the month of Ramadan, we received more than 40 calls reporting security issues related to Islamophobia by the community in Canada and the whole country.
It's almost 2 years after the attack on a Muslim family in London, walking home after they left their mosque. 4 family members were killed. That year, the government started a similar fund, $40 million over 2 years, that was set to end. This one is less, $25 million over 2 years. The government said not enough groups applied, so not all the money was spent. Now it's also expanding what groups can use the money for. It's just the latest government announcement spending more money geared at safety and security or policing in recent weeks. According to one political scientist, taking advantage of recent violent incidents, such as on the TTC.
If people are feeling insecure, then it's usually parties of the right that are going to benefit by saying, well, if you elect us, we will bring you security. And so in that way, it's natural for them to try and see if they can push some of the concerns that are out there a bit further.
Groups will be able to apply for this security funding starting in summer. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
The World Health Organization is declaring an end to COVID-19 as a global emergency. But even as many countries continue to wind down pandemic measures, experts warned that the disease that's already killed millions around the world remains an ongoing concern. Christine Birek has more.
This is a historic moment.
It's therefore with great hope
that I declare COVID-19 over as a global health emergency.
With this symbolic end, the World Health Organization reflected on 3 difficult years. While nearly 7 million deaths were reported, based on extra deaths worldwide, it's estimated the virus killed at least 20 million people. Health systems have been severely disrupted. Add to that serious economic damage, divisive social upheaval, and of course, the virus isn't gone.
The worst thing any country could do now is to use this news as a reason to let down its guard, to dismantle the systems it has built, or to send the message to its people that COVID-19 is nothing to worry about.
The situation in Canada right now is fairly stable, but I would say stable at a level that we would love to see it a lot lower.
The latest Canadian COVID-19 data show the number of hospitalizations has been decreasing this year, but remains stubbornly high. Currently, there are about 3,000 Canadians lying in hospital beds with the disease, and the virus killed 84 Canadians in the 3rd week of April, bringing the country's death toll to just over 52,000.
This is one of the viruses where vaccination plays an incredibly important role.
Doctors warn COVID is much deadlier than the flu. It's currently among the top 3 causes of death in Canada, and yet fewer than 20% of people over 60 have received a vaccine dose in the past few months.
One of my concerns is that in people who don't keep up to date on their vaccines because they perceive this as being over, they're increasing the risk of having long COVID or some of these other long-term health effects.
The World Health Organization says it will act again if a more infectious or deadlier variant emerges, adding surveillance remains key to keeping people safe. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
We asked people here in Windsor what they think about COVID-19 no longer being a public health emergency and how they reflect on the pandemic.
Today, COVID-19 went from being like a global health emergency and downgraded, but it's still a pandemic. How do you feel about that?
It's kind of confusing because, everyone's not wearing masks anymore. The one person that does wear a mask, they kind of are considered the odd one out. And, I did get COVID once and it was not fun, but yet I'm still one of the people also not wearing masks. So it is kind of confusing because it's still really scary and you worry about it, but people aren't as cautious as they were.
How do you feel about COVID today?
Done. I'm done with COVID. I'm done with restrictions. I'm done with not being able to do this. I'm done not being able to do that. I'm done. We're all done. Done. Let's live our lives now. We're not worried about COVID anymore. I got 3 vaccines. Enough is enough. It's time to get out and, live our lives again.
I lived in Japan for a while, and something that I always found very comforting about just the general public is that anybody that was sick would be masked. And I really hope that is something that comes from this, is that people just take more general personal precautions to be mindful of the safety of others around them. It's just a polite courtesy.
As we all suffered, it was a global emergency. So many of our family, they suffered, and most of them are no longer here with us today. I lost my uncle in COVID, so that was a very heartbreaking moment for us. But it's not just me, there are many other students and many other families who lost their family members.
Justin Trudeau is on his way to tomorrow's coronation of King Charles. He boarded a plane in Ottawa. The Canadian delegation at tomorrow's ceremony in London will include Indigenous leaders and a youth contingent. And 45 members of the Canadian Armed Forces will be part of a military parade following the coronation. There is, however, debate about the relevance of the monarchy across Canada. This week, the CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa spoke with a couple at one of Windsor's most royal crossroads to gauge the interest in the new king.
This is Terrence and Barbara Tompkins' house, sitting at the corner of Coronation Avenue and Buckingham Drive. The street names are a reminder of home.
And we knew we should be by all the royal names.
On Saturday, Terrence can watch the second coronation of his life. He was at Queen Elizabeth's back in 1953.
Being in the air cadets, I got a ticket to go and stand on the Victoria Monument to watch the parade go out and come back in again from Buckingham Palace. That was great, but there was no toilets there, which was a problem, because we got there about 6:30 in the morning. During the morning, I actually saw Prince Charles and his sister up at the window looking out at the crowd.
So what about the King's coronation?
I'll certainly be watching the highlights.
The monarchy is at a crossroads. The coronation of King Charles is the first in 70 years. And as the UK ramps up their celebrations this week, there's talk all across Canada about how relevant the royals are. It's a conversation being had right here at the Tompkins.
They didn't do much for the common people. That's why I don't like them.
Barbara says she was never a fan.
Cheers.
But there's still respect for the Royal House of Windsor at this house in Windsor.
I guess I was a bit of a royalist. In a way, I'm a little bit still, but not quite as much.
Recent history has tainted their image for him.
Okay, these people are supposedly head of the nation, and they should be an example to the population on how they should behave. And let's face it, that Prince Charles hasn't behaved very well, and some of the other royals haven't either. And I think that's let them down. And to a certain degree, they've let us down as well.
Yet he still thinks the monarchy lifts up the nation.
I think there's a binding force to keep us at a certain level of freedom and a certain level of good security. So if they weren't there, I don't know how or where we would be.
Barbara knows where she won't be this Saturday. Are you going to be watching?
No.
But for Terrence, the coronation is a link to home, a long-lasting tradition.
These things have gone on for so long, but the institution is necessary, and that's part of the magic of it all.
A sign of how old traditions can have new beginnings. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
And if you are looking to tune in, CBC will have full coverage of the coronation starting at 4 a.m. tomorrow morning on CBC TV, Newsnet, online, CBC Gem, and CBC News Explore. Colette will have the weather for us after the break. Well, if the sun isn't enough to put a smile on your face, maybe some of these little buddies it brought out will. These little dinosaurs are out on our roads again, so keep an eye out while walking, but also especially driving. Now, these little pals were out on the riverfront and by the university. Not Windsor's official bird, but officially the start of cute season here in the city. And with this, we're going to bring in Colette Kennedy, because Colette, just makes me so happy to see these little guys and the sun at the same time.
Yeah, so I like kicking off cute season, and I like the weather for cute season as well. I think many folks probably do. And yeah, taking a look at the current temperatures there, Windsor, the hot spot in Ontario, not the hot spot in the nation though, because of course that's still where they're seeing that real extreme heat in Alberta. In fact, Tompkins Landing, 31 degrees this hour, and it is around high level where obviously we have the issues with the out of control grass fires that are burning there, and they continue to see this kind of heat, dry conditions, windy conditions, but it should start to improve by the time we get to Sunday with some wet weather coming in and those winds subsiding as well. All right, let's bring it back home and talk a little more about what's happening here. Chatham-Kent at 14. You can see a little bit of green here along the lakeshore, anywhere around the lake where the temperatures are just a little bit cooler. With that breeze, it feels a little cooler still, but you get inland or away from the lake and then you really feel that warmth. Some wet weather tonight to the north. We stay in the dry sector, have clearer skies for much of the overnight and into tomorrow morning to start the day. So again, a great deal of sunshine and some nice temperatures we're going to be seeing here over the next several days. But I do want to show you a couple of features for the weekend to help you kind of plan when you want to be outside or your outside activities. So Saturday, no issues there. But then as we go into Saturday night, some cloud cover starts to move in even in the evening hours. Some isolated showers possible. I wouldn't expect there to be much to it, but some light showers. Now, where that changes is as we get into Sunday. Into the morning hours, some remnant thunderstorms or embedded thunderstorms with some heavier downpours kind of passing through, and then more widespread showers into the mid part of the day. Now this is 4 o'clock and you can see how it's already moved on to the east. So there will be that kind of morning hours through midday where things may not be perfect, and then we'll see improvement in the later afternoon Sunday and for those evening hours. And then we get another system into Monday that again gives us a chance of getting into some showers. So for tonight, great conditions, some patio weather this evening, and then overnight with those clear skies, we do fall to a low of 6 degrees. Look at this. Okay, this is not morning. This is afternoon. My bad. But we will get there, and that's the point, is that we're headed to 20 degrees for our Saturday afternoon, although we'll get into some increasing cloudiness. The temperature story still mild as we head into Sunday, even though we get some wet weather that's coming our way. And into Monday, that chance for some showers again, 19. Check out those overnight temperatures too through that corridor. We're talking double digits, very mild in the overnight hours. Then into Tuesday, still a chance for some showers, mostly cloudy skies becoming kind of variable because we will get clearing late day on Tuesday, and that's helping us out. It does make it a little cooler at night, but it helps us out into Wednesday when we get that full sunshine coming back. And look at those numbers, Katerina. Cute season, nice weather. It's all looking good.
Cute season is here. Thanks for that, Colette.
You're welcome.
When we come back, we're going to tell you about a new comic by an Essex County artist. That's coming right up. Stay with us. Tomorrow is the annual Free Comic Book Day. CBC Windsor video producer Mike Evans went by Rogues Gallery Comics and spoke to the owner about the event.
It's actually going to be Free Comic Book Day weekend for us here. It's going to be both Saturday and Sunday. We've been doing Free Comic Book Day since year one that we opened, so this is our 18th year of doing it. It's usually limited to 1 to 3 per person. There's 50 or 60 titles laid out for the event, and you get to choose from them. Over the years, it has just gotten bigger and bigger, and every year we add more and more shops to it, so we keep taking over a little bit of the city. The partnership is initially Rogues Gallery Comics, Paper Heroes, and Cartoon Kingdom. Those are all the main shops, but we have side shops that are all involved as well, all throughout the city. You can follow the chalk footprints to all of our participating places. Here we've got horror, we've got comedy, we've got kids books, and they are handily color-coded for parents to know the proper age group. There's Batman, there's Spider-Man, Three Stooges, there's the Smurfs, which we haven't seen in a million years, and there's Fish Flies by Jeff Lemire.
The Fish Flies book by Jeff Lemire sounds interesting because Fish Flies and Jeff Lemire are two things that are synonymous with this region. Tell us a little bit about that book.
Yeah, they're both homegrown. Fish Flies is all about the horror of the fish flies of Bell River and what that can do to a people. Although this is supernatural, it is something else. The pages you will recognize from the city alone, and it's super cool that this is a book that is going to be international. It's all over the world for this day. People all over the world are going to know of the plight of the fish fly of Bell River.
Jeff Lemire has had great success in the past. Essex County has been adapted by CBC. Sweet Tooth has been adapted by Netflix.
He actually brought his very first handmade book into the comic book store and asked us if we would sell them. He self-produced them, and we were lucky enough to actually sell those here. He's been excellent to us throughout the years. He's always, we call him an OG, an original geek.
Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.